Petrie brought us a deck lid. Where do you know it's back there still, ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
You remember you heard about the deck lid that Petrie made?
Yeah.
Where it had the hydraulics in it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, so we like to talk about innovation. Is there anything in your career that you created, you modified, that might have been pushing the rules a little bit? But is there anything out there?
Yeah, we had the 95 car I'm talking about. We had a qualifying, or we had an inspection deck lid that got through one station.
Yeah.
That wouldn't pass the next station, and but they never checked this station ever again. And then we had another deck lid that was legal for this station. So we would physically go through inspection, get turned down, go to the garage area, take one deck lid off, walk to the hauler, do a little sanding, do a little spray paint, do a little painting, spend a couple hours, take the illegal deck lid off, another deck lid that was illegal, and put it on, and then we're good to go.
No kidding.
We had some stuff like that.
So the fact that the stations were separated,
Mm-hmm.
you would put the deck lid on that would pass Station A but fail B, then you swap deck lids that was going to pass B.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you didn't have to go back through
You didn't
A
have to go
again.
back through A again. So
and just little stuff like that. And then we were the first team to start when they first put side skirts on them, they were the width of the frame rail. Okay?
Yeah.
And we was the first team to bring them all the way out to the edge of the body.
Yeah.
And I've got pictures of cars we had then that, it'll show the other cars that the side skirts are inboard and ours are all the way out. And that was about 2/10.
Yeah, that's a lot because you basically flatten the whole side out on the car. And now you got side force that guys didn't even talk about side force back then. I remember when I ran in the Xfinity Series, the year before me they had round sides, and then my with the rocker with the side skirts way underneath, and then the first year I raced we had the flat sides. That's how recent that happened, at least in the Xfinity Series.
I remember a time in your career when y'all were really dominating. That deal goes in cycles, but y'all were dominating all the plate races. And I remember hearing you talk about somebody's car, and I don't remember if it was up or down. You're like, yeah, that car's going to qualify okay, but it won't race good because of the fuel cell.
Yeah.
I know you talked about where people's fuel cells were as to how you could draft with them or how they would run in the race.
Yeah.
What did you think they had happened upon that made their plate program so good?
The same thing that we did 5 years earlier. They had a hell of a plate racer. They had good motors and they had good cars.
Yeah. Richie
They drove
Gilmore.
good. Yeah.
We had Richie Gilmore too.
Yeah.
He had something about intakes.
Yeah.
Remember when they were doing? Remember, I can't remember exactly all the details, but Richie was building motors for Hendrick back around when Derek Cope won the Daytona 500. They got into a little bit of trouble with some intakes.
Yeah.
And I think they kept the same sort of idea and method, but built it,
but made it legal
in a way that it would be legal. But they'd found something down there with intakes, and I think that helped them even when I came along. It's funny you mentioned about like going to Station A. A lot of times. So Tony Jr. was really good at that too, understanding how not having to build a intentionally illegal car, but understanding how the inspection process would open up opportunities.
Yep.
We would do something just as simple as this. So we go out to pit road to qualify, and they're going to go through and put a angle finder on the spoiler and set the spoiler. Everybody's spoiler got set about 5 cars away from being launched to qualify.
Yep.
And so Tony Jr. The official comes over and puts the angle finder they start on the right and they move across the spoiler to the left, right? And so Tony Jr.'s, I'm looking, it's supposed to be 45 degrees, right? And it's 50. And so immediately, I watched Tony Jr. go through this process with this official, and the official walks away. And I said, Tony Jr., why in the hell was the spoiler at 50 degrees? 45 is the rule. And he said, well, if I start really high, they're going to let me work it down. If it's close to 45, they won't let me loosen it up and adjust it. And he said, if I can start at 50, and they'll let me unloosen the adjustments and bring the spoiler back down, I'm going to set it at 45 on the far right edge. And as I work across and set each station or each mark or each area at 45, by the time I'm done over here on the left side of the car, the right side's down to 40. Right? Because as you work the whole spoiler down, all it gets lower and lower, right? Because they're all kind of working, fighting against each other. And I was like, no And just little things like that a lot of people don't think about, or a lot of people, finding that's innovation, man.
And if you do that 5 times, it makes a difference.
It does. I was telling somebody the other day, we're trying to figure out who's, we're hiring Bummy, who's the crew chief for Josh Berry. He's moving up to be our technical director. We're got to find a crew chief for Josh. And I'm like, Josh, I want to find you the crew chief that has a list of all the little things, right, that don't matter by themselves. But when you add all of them together, and he's going to do it to every car, that stuff adds up. You want to have that guy that says, somebody might look at that one thing and go, oh, man, that's probably not going to matter. But if you had 100 of them,
everything matters.
Everything adds up.
How do you find that out about candidates, though?
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to
who's willing to give that up?
You have to go on your gut sometimes. But, you can do a lot of research by asking about people that have worked with this guy, right? Was he a guy that pushed the envelope? Would he really, you want a guy that, you're rolling the car up to the tech shed and you're pretty damn nervous it's going to fail. You don't want to roll a car up there that you're like, oh, no, we're not in no trouble. We're going to get through here easy. No, I want the damn thing. I want you to be worried.
Hey, some of the best innovators, as we've had stories being told at this table, is that like it's one thing to have the idea, it's the other thing to be able to go through the inspection process and not give it up, but just by the way you act. And so I'm curious on some of those things that you were mentioning is that you were proud of, whether it was, the deck. Did it affect you, or were you able to play the poker game well enough?
No, we were able to play the poker game.
Yeah. Was there an intent to why y'all painted y'all's chassis flat black?
Yeah, we could get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
We could.
You can't see nothing.
Can't see nothing. And I'll be honest with you, I loved it. I mean, I started that. And we actually, it's funny you say that the 4 cars, they were actually, and Larry had to do this to the bottom of them. The bottom of them were painted with a gun, and they were really shiny. Everything else was semi-flat with a rattle can.
No kidding.
Yeah.
A rattle can.
With a rattle can.
The whole top of the chassis. All
everything.
the roll bars.
Yes, sir.
Unreal.
Yeah.
I have a connection to satin black chassis because Robert G's, all his chassis, all the dirt cars and stuff, are satin black. And so, but I didn't really notice that or think about that back in the mid-'90s when y'all were doing that with the Kodak car. But a boy came, Scott Lagacy came with with this car to the Xfinity Series, and everybody had Dove Gray chassis. Everybody. I thought it was almost a rule to have it. And we had a red short track car chassis, but Lagacy showed up with this car and it was black and you couldn't see. You'd look in there and be like, I can't even. Everything just blurs together.
Yeah.
Lagacy was running for that team.
He drove it. He drove the car, but I just remember that was the last flat. Then I think because of that car, they might have made it a rule. Now you have to have a gray Dove chassis.
Yeah, that particular car I'm talking about was the reason they made that rule, and it also had tinted windows. Every window in it was tinted, and it really looked good. I mean, black windows with a yellow car.
Yeah.
I mean, it really stood out. Mm-hmm. But you could stand there and look inside of it, and you couldn't see nothing.
No.
And then the drivers got to complaining that they couldn't see through it.
Yeah.
So they made us get rid of the windows, and then eventually they made us get rid of the black.
Did you like that conversation with Tony Glover? Well, y'all listen to the entire interview because the Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.